The ANC has a weird, shall we say, approach to international politics, but also in how they deal, even in this country, with problems. They seem to have this almost standoffish demeanor about them whenever something happens that is bad or that might signal something bad to come. The ANC first goes through this whole, oh, it doesn't matter. We'll deal with it, showing no signs of really trying to get the problem solved, almost as if to say, if we ignore the problem, if we just act as if the problem doesn't exist, hopefully it goes away by itself. For the most part, for the last 3 months, the tariffs with the Americans and the looming threat of ever increasing tariffs has been treated by the ANC as a bit of a who cares, right? It doesn't even matter. We'll just we'll just figure it out later. I guess in large part, the ANC were very much sort of banking on the idea that Trump will just let this go. He'll realize that a bunch of other countries don't like this and they don't have to worry. I think as we got closer and closer to the D date, and that is literally within the next 5 days, 6 days, the ANC finally started to realize that, oh crap, we are in serious trouble. There's really nothing we can do. Now, just very quickly, there is now a pre-deal that we have signed with the Americans in terms of trying to escape the upper echelons of tariffs. Now, that means that we will probably not face a 30% tariff increase. We will face some form of a tariff. We'll talk about the implications of that, right? So days before the US tariff deadline, South Africa signs a pre-deal deal. And effectively, again, the ANC sort of touts this as their incredible work that they've been doing over the last few months, trying to get this sorted. We know, thanks to a lot of insiders that have spoken out, the ANC did not spend the last few months speaking to the Americans, but rather more just sort of, whatever, right? To give you an idea of how the South Africans operate and why I say the ANC has this sort of nonchalant, hopefully the problem takes care of itself. Now, with sanctions looming over South African or the ANC leaders, instead of the ANC actually taking a very hard look at themselves and looking at how they're operating, just to give a very quick idea for people who might not know, the global Magnitsky Act is an act in America that gives the American government the ability to sanction any country that it feels violates human rights and also, most importantly, is involved in any sort of corruption globally. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to mean that the corruption is on a global scale, but rather just that whoever is corrupt and whatever corruption is being played out has global impacts. This, for example, the Mukunu scenario with General Mkwanazi and the revelations there, these are crime cartels that don't just operate inside South Africa. They might be based in South Africa, but they have tendrils that span the African continent. That is seen as global corruption, and the government is embroiled in these scenarios. So even if you don't believe that there's a white genocide going on in South Africa, even if you don't believe that there's persecution of white minorities and human rights abuses on white minorities, and not just white minorities, but minorities across the board in South Africa, even if you exclude that part, the Magnitsky Act still gives the United States the ability to sanction corrupt governments, of which the South African government is corruption number one, right? They're corruption accused number one worldwide. I don't think there's a government more accused of corruption than the South African one. And instead of the ANC taking a very hard look at themselves, they're going, well, Democrats, please help us. The ANC spokesperson, for example, said the following: there are many Democrats, including those who were part of the anti-apartheid movements, who will stand up to caution Americans against supporting a president, Trump, who wants to censor and undermine the sovereignty of other nations. This is not censorship or undermining the sovereignty of a nation. This is a nation's government that is so corrupt that it's actually helping criminal elements throughout the world. Remember, we come from a history where sanctions were imposed against the apartheid system but also the ANC was isolated by some of those countries that were working closely with the apartheid government, including the United States. This brings us to the story today. Because our government, once again, decided to leave things to the last minute and allow things to go down to the wire, we have a pre-deal deal with America, but it's not a good one, right? The pre-deal deal effectively gives the United States full access to South Africa, dropping any and all tariffs on American goods, opening the markets to American pork as well as American poultry, which isn't necessarily a super bad thing. The problem is that because we allowed it to go down to the wire, we are now saying to the Americans, look, we won't test the goods that you send into South Africa. We'll just trust you to send goods that isn't ridden into our country, which no one says that the Americans will actively do that. They will probably not send us disease ridden foods, but you still need to be able to taste it yourself, right? And you still need to be able to say to a country, hey, you currently have some kind of animal disease going on. We're not going to accept these goods until you get that under control. We've effectively waived that right across the board. Now, you might be saying, well, are we now giving them full access tariff-free to our markets? And yet Trump has already stated that South Africa will not get a 0% tariff deal. That will just never happen. The minimum that we can hope for if this deal actually gets approved is 10%. And you might say, but this is unfair. We're giving them, well, not really. So South Africa, the one saving grace for us is our rand. Because the rand is so much weaker than the dollar, even with 10% tariffs, we're good, right? Our goods will still be a lot cheaper than American-made goods. We'll still be very competitive within the American markets. So 10% is completely manageable. 30%, 40%, 50%, that's where we start to run into serious problems because the rand might be devalued against the dollar, but not by that much, especially not when it comes to exporting, which carries a lot of other hidden costs alongside it. One of the good things that comes out of this pre-deal is the fact that we have basically told the Americans we will import all of their natural gas as well as fracking technology that will just allow to come into the country duty-free, which might actually signal a bit of a lowering of gas prices, which would be good. The US has a ton of gas, and that would be super good for us. We're also going to do full duty-free quotas for steel and vehicles from America, which may signal vehicles becoming a little bit cheaper, especially American-made ones. Just to give you an idea of what tariffs actually look like in South Africa on vehicles alone, you have passenger cars and SUVs, for example, that carries a 25% tariff that is applied to the CIF, which is cost, insurance, and freight value. For example, a car worth 300,000 Rand would incur an additional 75,000 Rand in duties. Then you have luxury tax, which is high value vehicles face an extra ad valorem tax, which increases the vehicle's price. You have VAT, which is a 15% charge on the total cost, including tariffs and other fees. So it's tax on top of tax. Commercial vehicles get charged SADC benefits. The good news is that vehicles may actually come down in price. Steel products may actually come down in price as well. And we may actually have access to a lot more fruits and veggies at, I wouldn't say great prices because the dollar is still a lot stronger than the rand. But even during off-peak seasons, and remember, because we are at the south and they're in the north, our seasons are different. So we may actually be able to get a lot more access to food because the Americans are now able to send to us during off seasons. I think this is a great step in the right direction. I do think that there's a number of problems that I've already highlighted, and all of this stems from the ANC's inability to understand how important certain things are and how sometimes it's good to show a little bit of fire. Like, let's get this sorted because this might be a problem. Ultimately, guys, this is good news. Really good news, actually. We've reached a deal, well, pre-deal deal. Right? We're not there yet. This deal may still be rejected. This has nothing to do with the sanctions, which will probably still at some point come into effect, dependent on a number of things. This is also not necessarily going to affect the BRICS tariffs that may come on top of that, which is a whole different story. And maybe at some point we will do a live stream where we talk about what may or may not be happening why Trump is doing all of this to South Africa specifically, because I think I have an idea, but I'm still trying to research a bunch of stuff on this. Let me know in the comment section down below how you feel about this. Maybe I missed something that you think I should have been talking about. I love to read your thoughts in the comment section down below. And then if you like what I do, if you think this channel needs to be seen by more people, please consider hitting the like button, also hitting the subscribe button, and leaving a comment, because YouTube does really, really reward engagement above all else. Then a big shout out to all of the patrons and the YouTube members. If you want to support what I do here, please click the join button right below this video, or link in the description to watch all videos ad-free over on Patreon. You can follow me on X as well as on Discord. The links are in the description down below. I'll see all of you in the next one. A peace.